Hey, what's up, everyone? So, this is going to be the 93rd opening that I'd like to share with you, which is the Lollipop opening. So, this is essentially a continuation of the Rocket opening, just one move continuation, but rather we'll be considering this opening from the White's perspective as a result of the sequence. So, essentially, the sequence starts off with f5, and of course, you as a White player play the diagonal opening. So, if you're a diagonal player, this opening would suit you, followed by c7, and then the best counter over here is f4. This forms up a lollipop. So if you just kind of visualize the black diagonal 3 disc as a stick, and the white part of surrounding the end of the stick is like the candy or the sweet. So this is kind of like a lollipop shape. So yeah, that's probably how it got its name as a lollipop opening. So pretty interesting name for an opening. And of course, in the 96-second episode when we talked about the black's perspective in terms of rocket opening, you probably want to play c5 as the best move, meaning to say you probably expect a black response over here. And of course, you'll need to know that the best move is either to play to c6 or d7. So I think based on my own experience and how the Japanese players respond to this opening when I play it, is that d7 seems to be one of the better moves. So the strength of this shape is that it makes it counterintuitive for black to play because of the checkerboard. So when you form up this shape, white essentially controls this momentarily, controls this entire row, the sixth row, and controls the D column as well, and controls this mini diagonal through c6 and f3. So black doesn't really have a nice way to kind of intersect with any area. So like let's say if black were to just choose to play out g5, simply you could just respond to any of the adjacent squares next to it. So maybe g4 weighs heavily, more heavily than g6 perhaps, in terms of maintaining to the center of the board potentially. But you could probably argue for both cases. So let's say if you were to play g4, then you realize black would need to play a very loud move in order to just continue to play. And it kind of gets worse if black tries to play, say, c3 and just extend one more move, and you realize, hey, how come black is like losing a lot more disc, and then again black is forced to play such a loud move, and you're better position to actually try to capitalize on this advantage. So yeah, that's the interesting thing about this. And of course, if you're a white diagonal player, chances are that when black plays the black rocket opening to c7 and you follow up with lollipop opening, you can probably expect black to have a reasonable level of preparation when he plays this opening, because usually people don't really play this opening if you have like a basic sense of the openings. So it's probably not one of the strongest openings. So unless your opponent is going for a surprise factor, you should probably know some basic response to these moves. So I would say d7 is one of those moves that you need to know fairly well in terms of trying to capitalize the checkerboarding shape. So I would say, if the black is not a prepared player, then he could potentially be a very ill prepared or basically a beginner or a novice player playing against you. So you probably don't have to worry too much of preparation in terms of the line. So let's say if black were to play c3, which is one of the line that I recommend black to play as a rocket opening, and if you were to face off a player who has played the best move, then simply just play d3 or c4. Both works fine, but d3 is probably more favored because you force black to play a louder move to flip 3 discs in 3 different directions. So you can see over here in this shape, again, the fourth row is controlled by white as well as the sixth row, and this mini diagonal between c4 and f7, and also this mini diagonal between c6 and f3. So essentially, there's no nice way for black to kind of regroup his scattered discs. So this is one of the reasons why you don't want to be checkerboarded, and as white, in this case for a lollipop opening, you want to try to keep on maintaining that checkerboard shape. So if we were to compare over here in terms of the follow up after black were to play e3, you probably consider f3 or c4. Either one maintains the checkerboard. So c4 is probably not too ideal because it allows black a nice chip off move to b5. So, and also it flips 2 discs when you are able to consider an option to just flip 1 disc. So if white plays f3, then black eventually would find his way out to be able to try to find a nice intersection point, establishing e4. So over here, your follow-up move would then be about preventing e4. So I would say that over here as white, you are able to fairly maintain the lead if you are able to kind of play out the right sequences in terms of selecting the moves. So I would say as a white diagonal player, it's important to kind of prepare for this variation as well because as a white diagonal player, when you go back to the basic shape just before rocket opening is played, your opponent always has the choice of quite a few feasible options over here, up to 8 different variations. And so that's probably one thing to think about for the lollipop opening. And of course, the lollipop opening, if you wanted to consider a side variation to throw your opponent off, I think c6 is one of the more common response over here instead of the lollipop opening. So, yep. So hopefully this lollipop opening helps you as a white diagonal player, and I would recommend this for advanced players and above. And thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.